this huge misconception. Like I'm going to find some task that I can do that really just fills my soul and is a passion to me. Like being a baker or these weird things that people just have this misconception that they're going to find this magical thing that just turns them on.
Yeah, randomly God's going to show up and go, here you go.
Boom.
Yeah.
You've always had this in you.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work like that. When I got involved in door-to-door sales, it was an opportunity for me to make more money. I effing hated it. I was miserable because I was only focused on the money. And in the first couple of months, I did terrible. Like my results showed for it. But the longer that I was around there, the more that I tried to figure out, like, am I going to stay? Am I going to go? What am I going to be passionate about? And then I got good enough that Brian had me start training people. Mm-hmm. And then I blew a couple people out of the water and I made people feel like shit. And I didn't have patience for people. And I started to really reflect on my style and the way that I'd been raised and how all of this was kind of transpiring in the way that I was training people.
Yeah.
And then I remember the first, I had this one guy, he's still in the business. He works for Brian still. He's an incredible dude. And I had this moment at his house where I was mentoring him and I was coaching in him and I was, pouring this belief that he was going to be capable of doing so much here. And he had all these natural talents. And it was like all of this was just flowing out of me. For the first time, I was just like tapped into something that I didn't know was there. And I didn't know that was going to be the thing. Mm-hmm. And now I look back and I didn't really come to realize that for a long time after that. Mm-hmm. But I look back and I remember, there's so much that's happened between now and then.
Yeah.
But I remember those freaking little moments because it was like this, I had tapped into something that I felt great about.
Do you think it was that you saw him as a brother and as someone you really wanted to win and succeed? What do you think it was? What was it that got you in that flow? Can you pinpoint it? Can you?
Well, I care about people.
Yeah.
And me and him had developed a relationship. So I cared about him. I wanted him to win.
Yeah.
And I was trying to give him everything that I had. And one of the biggest things that he was struggling with was his own personal belief that he could do it and that he was capable of being a closer and being able to sit down at the kitchen table and have the influence with people. But for whatever reason, it was just like in that moment, talking to that kid at his house, and I didn't have a whole lot going on for me.
You hit that sweet spot.
But I hit this sweet spot.
Yeah.
It was just like, wow, that felt good.
I know the feeling, man.
Yeah, I think that's when you're in a selfless pursuit of helping other people because so often we're thinking about ourselves, right? And I think that's, what you said earlier about being a leader and believing in other people. Like a lot of times when we get out of our own way, we stop thinking about how we feel and we start thinking about how can we pour into other people's lives. That's when you find great things happening. It's also what I think makes leaders better because then they believe in someone else. It's almost like, like you did to me with saying we're moving to Idaho. It was like, that was it, dude. It really was. We were like, okay, I guess we're moving to Idaho. Like, we don't have a choice now. Brandon said it in front of 1,000 people.
The seed was planted.
Yeah, what are we going to do? Like, if we don't go, everybody's going to go, what, did Jeff and Kelsey punk out? Guess we're going. And so I think a lot of times it takes a leader willing to believe in someone else because it also – at some point, there was some risk for you involved too, where it wasn't like we weren't doing anything. Where if we moved and crashed and burned,
Yep.
But if you're going to believe in somebody, a lot of times that's what it does. It takes the feeling or the scarcity mindset or the uncomfortable feelings off yourself. And when you're believing in someone else, it lights your soul on fire. It's like, man, you could do this. And then you start believing it yourself. Like, man, if he could do it and I'm telling him, maybe I ought to listen to the same thing I'm saying. Uh-huh. And I think a lot of times that's what happens when people start building businesses. This is also why if you keep doing it, the longer you're doing it, the better the people get further on throughout your career. Uh-huh. It's because you're like,
and you want to go further faster. You don't want to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to develop the ability to train and mentor and coach and communicate at a high level and inspire people.
And you have to let them lead. Yeah. You have to let them go, and they're not going to do it like you, and it's okay, right?
Yeah. And if you think about all the best lessons came from the biggest mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you're just trying to give everybody every step of the way and not let them make any mistakes, they're not going to have those same opportunities.
The big ones hurt the most. Those are the ones you don't forget. Like, I better change so that don't happen again. Yeah, it's like that saying that if you want to go, if you want to go far, or if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if we want to go far, go together. Mm-hmm. And I think it's powerful, man. I mean, a team always wins. So, another things you talked about in here was, talking about networking, like initiating conversations, be interested in other people, learning people's names. These are things you do really well, right? But I think, like in high school and stuff, you did a really good job of that with the group of people that you were friends with. But I don't know how good of a job you did that with people that you weren't really good friends with. But It seems to me you took that skill that you already had and got uncomfortable. And now, I watch you everywhere we go. You're building new relationships. You know where people are from. You know their names. And you're constantly doing that everywhere we go, So it's not something you're just saying, hey, here's what you should do. But it's also something you're constantly doing. So how did you go from being the person where you were comfortable framing a house or being a mechanic, kind of wanting to be by yourself? You're always really good with people. Like anybody listening to this, you always had great charisma and good people skills. And I think that was probably part of the thing that got you through these crazy times in your life was your charisma, right? Mm-hmm. But also you've taken that now and got uncomfortable and used that to build a great business by networking and building relationships and all those kind of things. So talk about maybe the process of how you went from that being this talent or skill that was just kind of hidden, and then you were able to actually get uncomfortable and go use it.
Yeah, it's something that I had a little bit naturally, but it had to be developed because I always cared about people. And then you go through these motions of seeing how people perceive you when it's just all about you and you're the one talking and it's, you're not all that interested in them. And then I had some seeds planted with me with some coaches and mentors. Like, man, if you want to be interesting, be interested in other people. And they will all of a sudden just be so interested in you.
Such a big tip. Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't get it at first, but then I started practicing it.
Yeah.
And I start asking people's names. Like I asked the lady's name at the desk today.
Yep.
And her face lights up, man. Yep. And she's probably, I don't know, she may not have ever had anybody ask her name before.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, definitely.
That amazing.
Most people don't. They just walk in and out. And
what a simple
lady at the front desk. Yeah.
And she's just like, her face lights up and she kind of stands up halfway and she's like, I'm Kelly.
Yep.
And once I started being able to just see that and see how people lit up and just a smile or asking their name or asking where they're from or asking about their kids, you can go start a conversation anywhere.
Yeah.
And I've built some incredible relationships just by just genuinely being interested about people.
Yeah.
I just I text messaged Bradley today and I said, hey brother, my book's coming out in a couple weeks. Can I come back on the podcast? And he says, sure. And my assistant's been trying to get a hold of him for 3 weeks. He hasn't answered any messages.
Yeah.
And then I said, thanks, bro. And he said, what are friends for?
That's awesome.
But I built that relationship with Brad by not showing up and being the guy that's like talking about everything I got going on. Mm-hmm. I was talking about him and his wife and the things that he's got going on. And we built this little relationship where I would razz him about stuff within like the first couple hours that I met him. And it all came from being very intentional about caring about people and being genuine. And you can tell when somebody's genuine and when they're not freaking genuine.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And you want to go accomplish big things. It's not about how much you can do by yourself or how good of a salesperson you can become. Mm-hmm. It's about the relationships, the network, the opportunities that come from all of those things. And to think about all of the incredible things that have happened to me, all the investments that I'm in now and all the money that I've made and the business opportunities, they've all came from like these little skills that I just practiced and they seem like nothing now.
Yeah.
But for some people, they're like, man, you're so confident. It's like just being myself, just being interested in people.
Things begin to flow to you because you've been pouring into others.
Yeah.